Well, I want to thank the folks with the Patriots for getting back to me on my multiple requests for press credentials. Lousy suckers. You're guessing right.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now,
get Venables ready in case
Bill Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Furman's like they always are. Their players play extremely hard, don't make many mistakes. They're actually nationally ranked in a lot of defensive categories. So they're a solid team.
Oh, I think he's trying to set us up, keep your enemies closer. We're kind of developing an identity, made some improvement from the beginning of the year. I really like the chemistry that we're developing, playing with a little bit more consistency, and there's still plenty of things that we can continue to get better.
Mind games galore. Steve Spurrier doing his best to make people feel that Furman's going to be a threat to his team this week. Steve D'Anzio earlier in the week just heaping praise. Clemson's defense, Brent Venables not buying any of that as he gets his team ready for the best running attack in the ACC on Saturday. Good evening and welcome to Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. The Professor Tom Hayes with you tonight. Came back because of his contract. It's a night off. He has a stated number of vacation nights in his contract. He was threatening to strike during contract negotiations. One of the things that cave in on Pro to make him happy. Do that for the younger generation. It's not how much you work, it's how little work you get by with. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. So how you feeling here on Hump Night as we down the last couple of days of the week towards big weekend of football. We've got the Gamecocks and Furman for homecoming. We've got Clemson and Boston College. Of course, that's the bigger of the two games. They're going to meet up at Chestnut Hill on Saturday afternoon. What could be a very interesting game because of the recent turn of developments with the Tigers. And, of course, nationally, you've got that Florida State and Notre Dame game. Other way around, Notre Dame game is big no matter where they play. And as of this evening, Jameis Winston still going to be in uniform. ESPN outside the lines, people bringing up the issue. They're going to have their game day in Tallahassee Pro. There's talk of trying to get boycott game day show down there because of what ESPN has been drumming up this week about Winston and his story. That's the story that just keeps on giving to the sports fans every week during this football season.
And I think probably, it's Jameis Winston, but fill in the name here. This is ESPN's idea, and the New York Times for that matter, and I don't blame them because that's the gist of the story. Because especially when you look in the Northeast, college sports outside of basketball is not there, so they go down to the bastions of Southern football and let's check out the towns where football dominates and see how they affect the society as a whole. So I think that's the big story if you look at it from that standpoint. So I think that's the angle they're taking. But this is the idea of ripping the cover off of Notre Dame because the Michigan game win is not big anymore. North Carolina ran up and down the field on them. It'll be interesting to see how Notre Dame takes this game down in Tallahassee.
Yeah, but Florida State really hasn't had a great game this season. You think about it. We'll be right back. Who's that? Oh, Everett. What's his face? Yeah. Gelled. 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 Thank you. Anybody holding? Got a great show for you tonight coming up at the bottom of the hour. The M&M Boys, Will Merritt and Corey Miller. Looking forward to hearing what they have to say tonight. In our second hour, Ellis Johnson, good friend of Sports Talk at Auburn University. They've got the week off. South Carolina. They're getting ready for South Carolina in a couple of weeks. Recover from their loss this past weekend, their first loss, get back into the groove, and try and keep their hopes alive. For a playoff spot, if at all possible. Keep in mind that the way things are shaping up right now in college football, it's still anybody's guess as to the four teams at the end of the season. Come December 7th when Dan Radakovich and the other 12 get together and try to sort this thing out. They could have the way it's looking. They could have a real mess on their hands. Trying to decipher between multiple teams with two losses. Maybe one or two that have just one loss. Probably no one at that stage. If you're undefeated, you're one of the big five conference teams. Then you're a lock. Chances of that happening right now with regular season games, championship games to play, it's going to be awfully tough to have an undefeated team. Have to pick the four.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, they're in the same division. But to tell you the truth, Corn, I'm watching a lot of ACC and SEC football. The two teams that pass the eye test to me are the two teams in the Magnolia State. That Egg Bowl is going to decide a lot if these teams continue on the road they're on. Obviously, Mississippi State has to come out of the friendly confines of their stadium and have to play teams on the road, but Ole Miss is showing against 106,000 at Texas A&M made a believer out of me, and I've always said if you pack a defense, you got a chance, and both teams do. So Alabama, maybe Florida State there, but some of these glamour names are going to be left out because these Mississippi schools aren't taking any prisoners.
Eric Smith of USA Today, his new bowl projections. He's got in the playoffs. He's got Baylor versus Mississippi and Florida State versus Oregon. He's got Clemson against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl on December 31st, and he has got South Carolina. Well, let's see. I've got to search. He's got the Gamecocks against Louisville in the Belt Bowl, in Charlotte. That'd get games in Charlotte because they're going to open next season in Charlotte. That would not be, if that's where the Gamecocks end up, that's not a bad location. Listen, if you're the Gamecocks and you're their fans and you're not going to a Prestige Bowl, and you're not going someplace in Florida, and you're not going to the playoffs, you might as well be within an hour's ride so you can make it a quick overnight trip and be done with it. Well, after having to make all those trips to Florida in recent years.
Yeah, my point is I think probably with the championship tie-in, the Belt Bowl is now, let's face it, it's the Chick-fil-A Bowl because that is the ACC-SEC matchup. And as I said before many times when this happened, I thought Charlotte has a big time chance to have a nice bowl there because the ACC-SEC tie-in is a natural and it's worked in Atlanta. It'll work in Charlotte, but they have to treat it right to make it so. And I think that if they do end up in the Belt Bowl, that's not a bad way to start.
I agree. All right, 800-956-7266, a dynamite show for you tonight. You can be a part of it. And let's get at it. We begin tonight by going to Chris in Charles down the coast from where I am tonight. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good. I got a question here. Just listening to the bowl prediction, it's kind of bad that South Carolina maybe going to the Belt Bowl when we were expected to do a lot better than what we are doing. But my question is to you is that a lot of these teams now are going to the zone read, and I think we were very successful when we had Connor Shaw. Do you think Dylan Thompson hindered, so to speak, our production as far as being a threat when Connor Shaw may have not been the most accurate passer, but he had the threat of making these runs? You look at Mississippi State and Oregon and other schools like that when they have a dual quarterback that can take off if necessary. And I think Dylan Thompson don't put fear in anybody's eyes. And Mike Davis would have been a great running back if Dylan Thompson was kind of sure as, so to speak. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, first of all, a quarterback that stays in the pocket can still do his thing. If you notice, They use some zone read at Mississippi, but Bo Wallace is not a running quarterback. The same thing can be used in South Carolina. But, again, don't let the quarterback mask what your problems are. Your defense has been atrocious, and your offense has been trying to play catch-up. The key point is you're 17 minutes from being 5-1, and I don't think you have to make drastic changes except for that defense has to play better and they have to grow up. That's the key, Coin, in my opinion.
Oh, I think you nailed it. It's hard. I mean, people want to blame Dylan Thompson because he's not Connor Shaw. And, yeah, I think that having the running threat there is a little bit of an issue for the offense. But, again, the offense has not been the problem for this team. I mean, you look at their numbers, it's very comparable to last year. At this point in the season, the Gamecocks are averaging 434 yards per game. That's plenty of offense to win games. They're averaging 34 points per game. That's plenty of points to win games. Here's your problem. They're giving up 35 points per game. Here's your problem. They're giving up 441 yards per game. They're giving up some other ugly numbers. I can give you some other ugly numbers. They're giving up 264 passing yards per game. They're giving up over 5 yards a carry. So there is the essence of your problem. In recent years, the defense has been about half that in terms of its yield. So the offensive production has not dropped off. So you can't pin that on the quarterback. Now, one thing you can pin on the quarterback in these last two losses, the inability to rally, something Connor Shaw was able to do. And Dylan Thompson did that, too, when the Gamecocks were trailing in the bowl game. Remember, it was Dylan Thompson who came in and threw the winning touchdown pass in the bowl game against Michigan. So he can do it. They just haven't done it in the two opportunities that they've had to do that. We thank you for the call. Let's continue on the phone lines tonight here on Sports Talk. And we're headed next to a very smart person. There's no doubt he's a genius because his first name is Phil. And I happen to know a lot of Phils, and they're very smart people. And he's in Monk's Corner. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Thank you for that. That's very nice. I appreciate that. I have something about Pro kind of hit it on already. If Mississippi go undefeated into the Egg Bowl, and you're on that panel, obviously one's going to the SEC championship, and one's got to stay home. How do you not put both of those teams in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's going to be a real dicey deal. Let's take a look at that. Let's just say Ole Miss beats Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl and goes to the SEC championship game. And so they win the SEC championship. Let's say they finish an undefeated season. They go on to the playoff. You got Mississippi State sitting there with one loss. And let's say it was an overtime game and you lose by a field goal or an extra point, something that it could have gone either way. You're exactly right. How do you do that? The problem is in the minds of people when you lose a game in late November, it just seems to carry more weight than when you.
And I think
remember when Florida won, didn't they lose to Florida State in their rival game, and then they both of them met for the championship. So it has happened. There's precedent for losing that last game and still being in a position to play for the championship, Pro.
And that argument also is the fact that you're looking at a Mississippi State team that reel off 3 wins against top 10 opponents in that flurry in October, September and October. So you got to look at that in the body of work. So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult if those two teams keep winning.
800-956-7266, our number here on Sports Talk. Love to hear from you tonight while we have some time. Coming up, we've got the M&M boys. They're going to be joining us. We're also going to be chatting with Ellis Johnson in our second hour. We'll have some recruiting for you as well tonight. And we'll have our high school football report, too. 800-956-7266. We've got a potential a series-ending game being played today in Kansas City. The American League Championship Series could come to an end. What a great run Kansas City has been on pro. Seems like when they need a hit, they get it. When they need a pitch, they get it. And the defense just always seems to be in the right spot. What's the latest there?
Kansas City in the bottom of the seventh inning. Kansas City had a chance to break it open in the sixth. They had runners on first and second with only one out, but couldn't score. So Baltimore is hanging in there. Baltimore is one of those dangerous teams, Phil, that you don't want to give them any measure of quitting. If they steal one game, they'll steal two, and you look up and you're back in Baltimore. So I think Kansas City is trying hard to close this one out.
Yeah, they've just been playing great baseball. So it's 2-1 in the what?
In the bottom of the seventh inning.
2-1, bottom of the seventh. Time is running out on the Orioles. What a great year they've had, but they have just run into a hot team. And when they get on a roll, when a team like that gets on a roll, they start to believe. It goes up and down the lineup throughout the dugout, and they believe that they're going to find a way to win every game, that somebody's going to step up and make a big play in the field. Boy, the defensive plays they have made. They made one great play at third base last night. I saw today, I think it was in the fifth or the sixth, the Orioles were threatening. I think they had the bases loaded with two out and a line drive right at the second baseman, who had to make a somewhat difficult play on it. But just the positioning of their defense, and that's what happens when it's going your way. The ball finds the glove, does it not, Pro? It's baseball is in hitting, it's trying to find those holes, and it's more accident than anything else that you don't hit the ball at a fielder. And when you play a team the way Kansas City's going right now, it just seems like the ball finds the glove.
Well, the interesting thing about their outfield, they remind me of almost like having three Andrew Joneses in the outfield. How many singles did he save for the Brave staff when they were going great guns, because he played very shallow and could go back on the ball tremendously well. So those little dinks and dunks in the outfield didn't drop in, and then those guys can go and take it to the fence, and they'll take it over the fence. They can jump, all can run, all can dive and make catches in all types of positions. So this Kansas City outfield maybe saves about 2 or 3 hits a game for their pitching staff.
And out west, San Francisco and St. Louis will continue their series tonight. Terrific win last night for San Francisco, which, let's see, that series is what, 2-1 Giants, is that right?
Yeah. Just chalk it up to even year. Since we've been in the new millennium, on even years, the Giants win. So I'm saying it's an even year. The Giants are dangerous.
All right, so it's been terrific NLCS and ALCS so far, and looking forward to a terrific World Series. We've got a lot to come here on Sports Talk. Dabo Sweeney talking with the media this afternoon as well. We'll bring you a little bit of that, and we've got the M&M boys coming right up. Okay, the Wednesday edition of Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornblutz on the road. Going to be heading up to Boston tonight. And the professor, Tom Hayes, back at our studios in Columbia. And K-Mac is off tonight. We'll get back to phone calls in a little bit. Ellis Johnson in our next hour. But right now it is time to welcome in this week our good buddies, the M&M boys. Will Merritt, former Clemson standout, former Gamecock star. Good to have the two of them with us tonight. And, Will, let's begin with you. Since we last talked last Wednesday, a lot of things have happened up Clemson way. What's your take on what's ahead for the Tigers now as we go back to Cole Stout as a starting quarterback?
Well, I think it's a very interesting dynamic, Phil. I really do. I think it's a very unfortunate situation. Simply because Deshaun had proven that really very few mistakes were being made when he was at the helm. So you just didn't see a lot of mistakes. Not a lot of mental errors, not a lot of physical errors. Emotionally, he had become such a pinpointed leader on that offense. And so I think the dynamic is this. I think the one thing that is happening with Cole Stout coming back in, obviously Cole's no stranger to starting football games. And I also think, Phil, that they can rally around Cole differently than they did from the beginning of the year because there's no tension between Stout and Watson. Watson is not available for the next couple of weeks, so Cole's your man. So I feel like that everybody can kind of use the old cliche, pin your ears back and dance with the dates you brought because that's all you got right now in Cole Stout, and he's a little banged up himself. But I do think because of the awkward nature between those two guys battling for that starting job, that awkwardness and that tension has been removed. I do think the dynamics of this offense will be a little different over the next couple of weeks.
A moment, let's welcome in Corey Miller. Gamecocks had the week off. Now they get Furman before they go to Auburn. They've got issues of their own, Corey, and it looks like on the defensive side in particular, they're just still searching for the right people. It's hard to believe 6 games into the season, after a spring practice, after a preseason of practice, 6 games into the season, you're still searching for starters and players in the right position. Spurrier says they've got a walk-on defensive end who's going to see some playing time this week against Furman as they try to find some people who can put a pass rush on a quarterback.
Yeah, it's really tough, Phil. And that's what you got to do, though. You got to find somebody that's hungry and wants to come to the field and play and try to prove themselves. And they have 6 games to evaluate, if you will, some good players and not get it done. And I don't think they're going to find it. You have to go campus. You're not going to find that guy right now. That person, that dominant pass rusher does not exist on the roster. Unfortunately, guys, they had trying to come in and make the trades, so that hurt them. And, those guys like Kelsey Coles, we learned that hurt you as well. So, it's a tough situation that they're in. But I think you hear that situation, it comes down to scheming. And you got to continue to find ways. And sometimes you got to be exotic, with some blitzes and stunts and dogs and things like that to try to create pressure. They're forced to do that. Now, on the other side, the bad thing is your back end is not that good. So you got a lot of young guys like they're playing, seeing a lot of stuff. The game is real fast for them right now. Hasn't slowed down yet. So you kind of have to pickle defensively, but you got to take your pressure. And hopefully you can do that right now. Being blitzes and make the high zone dogs.
All right, Corey, we're going to redial you because your cell is a little bit on the weak side. So let's jump to Will here for a moment, Steak Man, and let's reconnect with Corey, see if we can get a better cell. While we do that, Will, Clemson's running game against Louisville was non-existent. Now, that could have been because Louisville is a very good defensive team.
Running game?
Yeah, well, you know what I'm talking about. So now if you're facing another really good defense against Boston College, and if you're the Boston College defensive coaches, do you stack the line and kind of dare Cole Stout to beat you with the passing game as maybe the coaches did early in the season? How do you think they're going to approach it?
Phil, and I'm not trying to be negative. That's not my nature. But I will tell you this. I'm not sure they have to stack the box to stop the running game right now. I don't think it's I think if you were playing Arkansas, you would say, yeah, you stack the box. That's the only way you're going to beat them. But I'm not sure that you have to stack the box to stop the run against Clemson. If I'm Boston College right now, I'll probably go into it a little bit more basic, knowing that that Cole is probably not going to be able to out-athlete you on the corners like Watson did when he got outside the pocket and turn a 2-yard scramble into a 12-yard run. I'm not sure that I really change a whole lot about my front seven. I just let them go out there and play base and make and challenge Clemson to do something different than they have this year, and that's get a really good push up front and reestablish the line of scrimmage. Until they do that, Phil, quite frankly, I'm not sure that you got to add that 8th or 9th, creeper and crawler up there in the box.
All right, very good. Quick update from Clemson on injuries from Dabo Swinney. Joe Gore was back at practice, looks good. Tony Stewart back at practice, taking reps. Sharon Peak back at practice, but out Saturday, as well as defensive back Martin Jenkins. Running back Tyshawn Dye is practicing, and Sweeney's excited about him, and he is progressing, but no word on whether or not he'll play. Back to you real quick, Will. How do you view the overall quality of the Clemson running backs now compared to what they've had over the previous 10 years?
Yeah, I think you took a step back as far as some of your veteran guys. I don't know that some of your veterans are really stepping up to the plate like you've had. I mean, I think people just forget how good Roderick McDowell was last year, and Hot Rod gave us a dynamic that we just don't have. Now, I do think you have it in the youth department. I think Joyce and Diet and those guys are going to be some guys that are going to be, just superstars one day. But I mean, let's face it, they're still learning this offense, and I think that Tony Elliott's doing a fantastic job with the running back core and has for quite some time. I still think from a veteran standpoint you have it. The one thing that I have been impressed with the running backs is their pass protection. I do think they've done a good job in blitz pickup. I do think they've done a good job of recognizing when the pocket was collapsing and getting outside and having a little dump down route. I don't think they're making a ton of mental errors. So you can build on that. If you're not making just a tremendous amount of mental errors, then that's something that you can build on and go, okay, as he matures into his body and as he matures into this offense, he's only going to get better. So that's what I really like to see is the fact that they are being able to use as that 6'7" pass pro man, and they're helping solidify that pocket. And I got to tell you, they will need that this weekend. If they do not get some home runs down the field early against Boston College, it's going to be a tough ball game for them to go on the road and win. And I know this is a special place for Dabo, and it's the homecoming of his first win ever as a Clemson head coach. And I know there'll be emotions will be running high, and you'll have a lot of storylines behind it. But the fact still remains, Boston College is better than they have been in recent years, and Clemson will have to be able to beat them downfield in the secondary. And I think that running back core will have to do as good a job of pass pro as they are toting the skin.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And speaking of homecoming, I believe this is Boston College's homecoming this weekend that they're going to be celebrating against Clemson. As will be the case in Columbia, Corey, with the Gamecocks having their homecoming against Furman. What about the rest of the season for South Carolina now? What do you see moving forward for this team now that they're going back to the grind of 6 more games in 7 weeks?
Well, the thing is, you got to try to finish strong. It's the second half of the season. You start with a game you should win in Furman out of Southern Conference, and I covered those guys before. I did a game a couple of weeks ago. This is a game South Carolina going to really walk through and get some young guys some time to play. But you look at, at Auburn next week going to be tough. I expect them to lose that ball game. You got to go to Florida. I expect South Carolina to lose that one. So, they're flirting with 6 and 6, 7 and 5 in my opinion, and it's okay because whether you're 7 and 5, 8 and 4, I don't think that's a big difference. I think you're just trying to get better as a team moving forward, and hopefully those young guys, as Coach Spurrier said, help us on the way, and you try to build for next season because right now I think all is lost. Can't win a championship, so try to finish as best as you can and win a bowl game.
All right, hang on 1 second, Corey. We're going to come right back to you, let you finish up with that and more in a moment. All right, back to Corey Miller and Will Merritt. Corey was talking as we hit the break. I wanted you to finish, and just to go back to what we were saying and talking about the rest of the season for South Carolina, you're not that optimistic about a strong finish here and a possible salvaging of this season and maybe getting to 8 wins minimum.
8 wins going to be tough, Phil. I mean, you got 3 right now, and then you got to go 5-1 out of the next 6, and you got tough road games, as I said, at Auburn, at Florida. You got to go to Clemson, you get Tennessee at home, and of course, the 2 I'm going to give them is South Alabama, and then this weekend at homecoming against Furman. So that's 5, and then Tennessee's not going to be a gimme. I expected to win that game though. That's 6, but I think they struggle on the road, and you got to have really good defenses to win on the road. They're not going to win at Auburn. You got to go to Florida, who's playing tough. I mean, offensively they're not that great, but the Swamp is still a tough place to play. And then Clemson, your last game, they're going to be. They got the calendar and the countdown clock going. This team's going to try to win that game. So I don't know if they can win at Clemson. So I think it's going to be a tough finish for the Gamecocks. But if you try to get a bowl game and try to finish on a positive note, because you got some young guys coming in next year that maybe going to help some. But I think South Carolina's not 2 years away from being another solid football team.
Well, you talked about the dynamic of Clemson's quarterback situation now with Deshaun Watson out with a broken finger. I saw, at least on the television screen, I saw a different dynamic also in the Clemson defense. It's been years you hear about Taj Boyd and Sammy Watkins and Andre Ellington. Even though they almost gave up the ghost, I had the feeling that the defense loved being on center stage, and it was our unit that won this football game, and I thought they relished in the fact that people were talking about their defense all of a sudden.
Well, I love the fact that you just brought that up. I think that's a great point. And listen, they better love the center stage over the next couple of weeks. They better enjoy relishing in it, because it's going to be theirs to win a lot of ball games. And I do think that this defense has a swagger about it that we have not seen a lot in yesteryear. Now, I think it's been building, and I think people had pinpointed this defense, but they've got some legitimate leaders on that defensive side of the ball. Guys, they've got leaders in the secondary, they have leaders at linebacker, and they have leaders at defensive tackle, and they have leaders at defensive end. There is nowhere on that defense that there is not situational leadership amongst those different personnel groups. And I think that in itself is why you're seeing them play with such a poise about them. So, like when you talked about the game was on the line because it was on their shoulders, there's not one group that did not feel like they could stand up and do exactly what they needed to in order to be successful. And, Corey, let me just speak to you real quick. Yeah, we do have that countdown clock going on at Clemson. I asked them not to put the clock at 218 months, but unfortunately, I guess that's where they had put it. So it's finally coming down now. So hopefully the countdown clock is they've been able to wind it up. I think they accidentally put a couple of extra years in there, and we're hoping that they've been able to fast track that thing with the flux capacitor in the DeLorean and go back to the future.
All right, let me ask you guys real quick. Time is short, but I do want you to talk about the 2 off-the-field burning issues of the last 2 weeks in college football. Todd Gurley and Mark Richt said today they'll know by Friday if Gurley's going to be able to play when they go to Arkansas. And Jameis Winston. Corey, if you can, in about 30 seconds, give me a summary opinion on should these 2 guys be in a college football uniform today?
Absolutely, and wholeheartedly they should play. You know what I think about that. I'm on the player side. They should be getting paid anyway. The fact that, everybody else makes money off their name, their number, why can't they? It's ridiculous. NCAA should be worrying about other things except these guys going out and getting the jersey signed for $400 or $500. I think it's stupid, and that both these guys should be able to play on Saturdays.
And Will, what do you think?
Whether or not, Corey, you agree with players getting paid or not, and I agree with Corey in that regard, the rules are what they are, and you can't break them. The one thing I will say in this whole situation is you got to be a little bit proud of Todd Gurley in the fact that they asked him, did he take money, and he said yes. I mean, he at least owned up to it. Did he admit to everything? Maybe not. I don't know. But at least he was honest about it and forthright up front. I'm not sure Jameis Winston has been honest about anything since he's been at FSU. Now, maybe I'm jaded in that regard. But listen, I don't mind players getting a stipend. I think they deserve to get paid. I think a lot of more guys in the country are getting paid. At the end of the day, though, I'm with Corey. I say let them play, man. And I think they're better for the game.
Guys, appreciate it so much. Have yourselves a great rest of the week, a great weekend. We look forward to being back with you on a Wednesday night next week. Our M&M boys. That's right, the real M&M boys live here on Sports Talk. Will Merritt and Corey Miller, thank you for your insights and your opinions and your straightforward honesty with us and telling us how you feel about college football issues. That's the M&M boys tonight here on Sports Talk. We'll be right back with recruiting. Thanks again to the M&M boys for being with us tonight here on Sports Talk. They'll be back with us next Wednesday night. Now time for our recruiting reports brought to you by South Carolina's Electric Cooperatives, sponsors of the 2014 Touchstone Energy Bowl. Of course, we want to see you there at Doug Shaw Memorial Stadium coming up on December 13th in Myrtle Beach. Should be a great game. A lot of good athletes will be in that one this year. To recruiting now, just a simple football note. Clemson has now officially offered Javon Kinlaw from Goose Creek. He's a junior defensive lineman, offensive tackle, and has been favoring South Carolina and continues to do so. In basketball, after a week off, 6'6" P.J. Dozier of Spring Valley returns to the official visit trail tomorrow when he arrives at Georgetown. He's been to Michigan and North Carolina, still has USC and Louisville to come. His father, Perry Dozier, told us the North Carolina visit was great. They've had two real good visits. North Carolina was pretty much what they expected, he said. He said that his son was really trying to see how he liked being around the other players and how the coach gelled with the players, and he listened a little bit more about academics. He also said that the academic issues that North Carolina has gone through, not a factor. Those have been fully explained to them, and they knew all about it, and they are clear on what's happening with all of that. Closer to home, Dozier said USC's coaching staff is in daily contact, much of it in person, watching Dozier work out or practice. Perry Dozier said of the Gamecocks, they've done their job. It's been pretty much the whole staff, he said. Coach Evans comes by frequently. As for the decision-making process, Perry Dozier said everything is going along as planned. He said it's all about the feel for PJ right now, getting on the campus and seeing how it feels. No favorite. Everybody has their perks and their pluses. It's hard to say what's going to be the final decision, he said, until he takes all 5 visits. And Perry Dozier said when the decision is made, they plan to announce it on one of the ESPN outlets in Charlotte, though those details have not yet been finalized. So it's Georgetown tomorrow, and then South Carolina the next weekend, and then it is going to be Louisville. Interesting that he'll be at South Carolina Pro when there is no football game. The Gamecock athletic attention will be on the football game at Auburn. But Dozier's been to football games at USC, and it's really about the basketball. A great opportunity for Frank Martin to sell the future of Gamecock basketball to him without having to deal with the football sideshow.
Yeah, I think from a fan standpoint, they'd like to keep the local talent at home, Mac if possible as well, and down the road with Seventh Woods. And then expand from there, because we know that Frank Martin has recruiting tentacles around the country. But to keep the guys at home, that's the first selling point to building a program, because I think the fans in the environs of Columbia would, come to the Coliseum for that reason.
All right, top of the hour break here on Sports Talk. Stay with us. We have got a great second hour, including Ellis Johnson, coming up in just a little bit. Stay tuned here on Sports Talk.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We are back. It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Great to have you with us, Phil Kornblut and the Professor Tom Hayes. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. You can join in on the program if you'd like. Coming up a little bit later on, Ellis Johnson will join us, the Auburn defensive coordinator. Always lucky to have him on with us to talk about football things, in particular his team, which will be facing South Carolina in a couple of weeks. Coming up after the next break, Furman football coach Bruce Fowler will be on Sports Talk about his team's preparation for South Carolina and moving forward to take on the Gamecocks this weekend in Columbia. So stay tuned for that. It's all over in Kansas City. The Royals win it 2-1, sweep the Orioles in 4 games, and go back to the World Series for the first time since 1985. So that great story continues. Now will it be the Giants or the nearby Cardinals that they will face in the World Series? That is yet to be determined. Time for our high school football report for tonight, brought to you by South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance. And tonight we take a look at the rankings. This from David Shelton in the high school sports report, his updated ranking. And in 4A, he has moved Burns to the top of the list. It's been a little bit of a revolving door at the top of 4A. It was, of course, for the longest time, it was Dorman, and then it was York, or was it the other way around? It was York, Dorman. Before that, it was, I think it was Burns, if I'm not mistaken. Now Burns has gone back to the top. Goose Creek is number 2, followed by North Augusta, Dutch Fork, and Westwood. No, it was Dutch Fork that was number 1 for a long time before losing. So it's Burns, Goose Creek, North Augusta, Dutch Fork, and Westwood popping up at number 5. Then it's Fort Dorchester, Northwestern, York, Dorman, and Westside. What a job Scott Early has done in resurrecting Westside in his first season. Has gone in there quickly and turned it around. It's going to be tough, though, because he lost his starting quarterback for the season. Now he's having to go with a young guy at quarterback. In 3A, Myrtle Beach continues to show the way, followed by Hartsville, Wren, AC Flora, Greer. Then it's Broome, Daniel, Seneca, South Point, and BHP. In 2A, Dillon remains number 1 ahead of Timberland, Woodruff, and Loris. Dillon and Loris play not this Friday, but next Friday at Loris. Fairfield Central is 5th, followed by Chesney, Keenan, Batesburg, Leesville, Chesterfield, and Barnwell. And 1A, it's Christ Church, of course, leading the way, followed by a very good Allendale Fairfax team. Then it is Hemingway, Estill, and Great Falls. At 6 is Bamberg Earhart, followed by Lamar, Williston Elko, McBee, and Hunter Kyler Tyler at number 10. All right, the high school football report nightly on Sports Talk, brought to you by our good friends at South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance. Bruce Fowler from Furman is coming up here on Sports Talk. Find out about the Paladins right here in just a moment.
there's a rhetoric in this community that our fans don't care about our sport. Okay, and it's something that continues to be reported by media members, which is your guys' side of the fence there, that people don't care about basketball in our community, and it's unfortunate that that's the feel, because if you look at facts, and facts are facts, is that this school hasn't had. There's a rhetoric in this community that our fans don't care. You go see women's basketball. Look what Don's built. You go see our baseball team. I'm tired of going and standing. I like to sit down every once in a while at a baseball game, but there's no seats, you know. And
And we're back on Sports Talk as we welcome into the program Furman coach Bruce Fowler of the Paladins, preparing to take on the Gamecocks Saturday in Columbia. And our conversation with Coach Fowler is brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. Coach, good to have you with us here on Sports Talk, and I know it's been a season of disappointment maybe a little bit for you so far. You had such high hopes going in, and then you lose Reese Hannon in the first game, and having to go to a young guy at quarterback. You're on a 4-game losing streak. How well are your guys kind of holding together through all this?
Well, pretty good. I mean, obviously, we hadn't held together well enough to, win any games here in the last few weeks, but we seemed to make some strides. We were open, obviously, this past weekend, but when we played Coastal Carolina a couple weeks ago and lost in overtime, 2 overtimes, we made some strides, and kind of getting, hopefully, some young guys that are starting to pick up some experience at the quarterback spot, but also at some other places. Just hadn't been very consistent in some things execution-wise, but we're hopeful and continue to stay the course, working hard at it and putting in the time and the effort to get it done. And I have a lot of faith in our guys, and so hopefully that as we keep moving forward, things are going to get better.
Tell us about the young quarterback that you have turned to now. Obviously, he's a young man with some talent. He's done some good things for you. He's got a catchy name as well. And tell us about him and how you are seeing him develop at this point.
Yeah, PJ Blazechowski. He's a true freshman, and just came in as it was a third guy through preseason camp and all that stuff. And when Reese got hurt in right there in the first game, Dylan Woodruff stepped in. He's a redshirt freshman, and is doing a good job. We're struggling with some things, and about Western Carolina, which was our fifth game, about halfway through in the third quarter, I guess, PJ came in and kind of gave us a little spark, which happens sometime when a guy comes off the bench at quarterback. But then he started the game against Coastal and had a very solid game. We didn't turn the ball over, and he just did a good job running the offense. And he's a guy that can do a lot of different things, has a lot of the intangibles and poise and all that has shown up at least in these first couple of games. So we think he's got the tools to get it done, and he's obviously it's not a one-man game or a one-man show, but he's done a good job, and I think he's going to be a good one for us.
What are his best tools?
Well, he's kind of a dual threat guy. He's got that ability to make some things happen running the football, but he's got a strong arm, good quick release. Can make a variety of different throws, and then he's good at extending plays. He can move around back there. He's got good instincts and vision and all the things that makes it for a good quarterback in our offense. And then those intangibles, I think he's got those too. Seems to keep his poise and react pretty well to the moment that he's in, and all the things that as a quarterback trigger man you got to have.
So when you lost Reese and you had to shuffle the quarterback situation around a little bit, what was the greatest impact on your offense, and have you been able to kind of regain some of what you were hoping to be able to do with Reese Hannon at quarterback?
Well, yeah, I think so, Phil. One of the things is in the offensive line, we lost Dakota Dozier, lost the starting center that was a really good player for us. And we had another guy that was a returning starter for us that had a serious leg injury in the 2013 season. So we really were not in great shape in the offensive line when we started either. And, that's kind of critical to your success in all positions over there on offense. So we've gotten better there as we've gone along too. But we've had to retool some things and, kind of look at what we're doing exactly from a scheme standpoint. With both quarterbacks being not just not having experience, but not even having a lot of practice time in PJ's case. Obviously, the pace has slowed a little bit, but I think we're catching our stride a little bit. We've played 6 games now. We've had an open week. We're kind of, I think, settling in over there on offense. We've had a hard time being consistent, but it's not just because the quarterback spot. It's just we haven't executed well enough at times, and obviously, when you lose your starting quarterback that's a team leader and has all the things, it affected our whole team, not just our offense. We've unfortunately been through this experience before, the quarterback spot in 2013 and in 2012. So it's something it's part of the game. We've got to adjust to it, and obviously it impacted Reese, but it impacted our whole team too.
Yeah, and it's a shame that the offense has to go through this because your defense is really playing well. I think you're like, second or third in the Southern Conference in overall defense, and you have a lot of good numbers on the defensive side. If you had your offense up to speed and up to par with the way the defense is playing, it's no telling what you might be able to do this season.
Yeah, we've played really well the first 4 weeks of the season on defense. I mean, exceptionally well. And we're very productive and all, but we just couldn't consistently get the ball in the end zone. We had time of possession. We were moving the ball pretty well sometimes from 30 to 30, but we had trouble in the red zone. We had trouble converting, getting touchdowns, and so we had some really low scoring games, especially by today's standards. Really low scoring games that we just came out on the wrong end, and we didn't execute well enough. And defensively, we've played some pretty good offensive teams here the last couple of weeks, and haven't played as well as as our standard or what we want to play on defense in these last couple of weeks. But again, we've had a couple good solid weeks of practice here, and hopefully we're going to get back to playing like we're capable of.
Of course, you well know that Furman was among the first of the what was then 1AA, now FCS teams to built a name, a reputation for knocking off the big boys. Won 4 times back in the 80s, including beating South Carolina in 82. It's tougher now, and especially with your situation. Is there anything about the matchup you see that could work in your favor?
Well, I don't know if there's anything about the matchup that works in our favor. I mean, obviously, we're playing a tremendous program, not just a very good team. We're playing a tremendous team and program, and a team that's solid and winning year in and year out, and has been one of the top teams in football. They've got a really good football team this year. They've had a couple really close losses here in the last few games they've played, but they're a good football team in all areas, and obviously it's a tremendous challenge for our football team. We're going to have to play very well, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you're playing. We've got to execute, and we've got to do things very well to win any football game. And I think when you play a team, obviously the caliber of South Carolina, you got to do it, every down. And so that's kind of how we approach it, Phil. When we're playing them, it's a cliche, but you just got to get your team ready and practice the same way, make improvement every day, and then go into the game, and you've got to do what you're prepared to do and do it very well.
You weren't on that 82 team that won in Columbia, so Gamecock fans really shouldn't be mad at you. Where were you in 82?
In the stands. I was coaching high school at Rand up here in the upstate, but I did actually go to the game. That was just after I'd finished at Furman a couple of years. We had played South Carolina one year when I was there too, and they beat us the year that I was there. But I didn't have any contribution that day other than just watching also. But the time in the 82 game, I was up there watching, and a long time ago. But I think we've only played one time since then, and that was a couple of years ago before I came back here to Furman.
Yeah.
But
2010, yeah. All right, Coach. We thank you very much. Thanks for the visit. Look forward to talking to you again soon, and good luck to you on Saturday. That's Bruce Fowler, football coach at Furman. The Paladins coming to Columbia noon on Saturday for homecoming. Back in a moment.
In this there's a rhetoric in this community that our fans don't care about our sport.
All right, thanks to Bruce Fowler once again for being with us. Ellis Johnson coming up. But let's take a break from football for a moment, talk a little basketball. Frank Martin, USC coach, met with the media today, and He talked about the team and how practice is coming along and all that, but he had another message on his mind in his opening comments, and the message is that basketball is important to Gamecock fans.
There's a rhetoric in this community that our fans don't care about our sport, okay? And it's something that continues to be reported by media members, which is your guys' side of the fence there. That people don't care about basketball in our community, and it's unfortunate that that's the feel, because if you look at facts, and facts are facts, is that this school hasn't had much success in basketball in however number of years. You put the number there you want to put on there, but we ranked 39th in the country in attendance last year. It's hard to tell me that people don't care. And yet you're in the top 40 in the country in total attendance. You're 5th in the SEC, and there's an opinion that people don't care. That's I'm having a tough time swallowing that one. It's but we got fans that care. Our students last year were awesome. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the 2 snow games. Our student body was ridiculous. You know, we didn't have the commuter fan in there. We had the students in there, and they were off the charts. You know, the Kentucky game, when I took the job, I had people say to me, Frank, we can't have this deal when we play Kentucky or Ohio State or Florida where the whole building roots for the other team. And I've never been in that environment. I've been lucky. I was at Northeastern where no one came. They didn't come for us or them. Nobody came. And then by the end of my time there, we're selling out our arena, which was a massive building that sat 1,800 people. Okay, and then when you go to Cincinnati, and it's 13,176 every time you play, and everyone's a Bearcat. And then you go to Kansas State, and it's 12,196, and everyone's a Wildcat. And then I come here, and I'm hearing this about fans from other schools representing. So I went into that Kentucky game really expecting that. I thought our fans were off the charts. There was a moment in the game, I have no idea why, they were starting to make a push, and their crowd started kind of to make some noise, and it was engulfed. Their noise just disappeared because our fans took over the building, which is what it's about. It's just a way. I gave you a long-winded answer for such a simple question. Just excited about what we're doing here. We've got great fans here. You go to a soccer game, there's 5,000 students at a soccer game. I don't need to tell you about football. I get goosebumps every time I walk out there. You go see women's basketball. Look what Don's built. You go see our baseball team. I'm tired of going and standing. I like to sit down every once in a while at a baseball game, but there's no seats, you know, and we've got awesome fans. And when you take into consideration the lack of success, there's no other way of wording it, that this program's had for whatever number of years, for us to rank 39th in the country in attendance should show people that we actually got great fans.
And that is USC basketball coach Frank Martin. Back in a moment. Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We're trying to hook up with Ellis Johnson, defensive coordinator at Auburn. He told me they'd be coming off the practice field about 10 minutes ago, but it was going to be a little bit tight for our scheduled airtime here at 7:34, so we're still trying to hook up with him, and we'll continue to try to reach him here in the next few minutes and get him to you. If not tonight, then tomorrow night. They do have the week off as far as a game is concerned, but they are practicing, so we'll continue to try to reach him in the next couple of minutes. If we strike out, we'll try to hook up with him on the program tomorrow night or on Friday. Tomorrow night, I'll be with you from Boston. Tomorrow night and Friday, Sports Talk from Boston as well as from Columbia. South Carolina has practiced today, and as far as a couple of the notes from practice from some of the reporters out there and some of their tweets and what they had to say from talking with the coaches after practice. Let's bring you a little bit of that. It says David Williams saying the running game this week, the plan may be to run 75% of the time. Brandon Wiles practiced, said he feels fine, but he could sit on Saturday as a precaution. Sean Elliott said the team is taking its time with Mike Matulis because of the knee, hoping to work him back in gradually. Could play Saturday. Corey Robinson practiced fully today after missing Tuesday's practice with a left ankle. Players who did not practice or wore yellow today, guard Cody Waldrop with the right knee, linebacker Bryson Allen Williams with the concussion, defensive end Mason Harris, who was sick, defensive end David Johnson, right knee, defensive end Cedric Cooper with the ankle. So there you go. That's the report from South Carolina this afternoon, and the Gamecocks getting ready to take on Furman, and it's homecoming for South Carolina, so the Gamecocks will try to generate some enthusiasm. Perhaps the fans will still turn out in a big number maybe push that attendance to over 70,000. 12 o'clock kickoff. Hopefully the weather will be good in Columbia, and the fans will come out and enjoy a nice afternoon at Williams-Brice Stadium, enjoy coming back to campus for a homecoming. Don't fret the 2-game losing streak, and don't be turned off by the fact that you're not playing some big-name school.
Well, the interesting thing is, if you believe in the pendulum swinging, the key is South Carolina has some great escapes in the last 3 years, and sometimes it comes back to roost. Sometimes it goes the other team's way, and Kentucky was in for a break some kind of way, and when that ball was tipped late, you say, well, the pendulum is swinging over to Kentucky to have a win in this game. But South Carolina, blowing the 2 games in the last 17 minutes, the team is very close. And as I said before, and I stand by my statement, that South Carolina, the talent may not be there for playmakers just yet, but I think the young guys will turn into playmakers as they mature, as they move into their sophomore and junior years. But the key point is the immediate loss of Cedric Cooper. To me, the move was outstanding in the offseason to move him to defensive end because he was an athlete. He was there to be a player. And he showed you in the brief time he was in there, he was putting pressure on the passer in both games. And then when he went down, that's when, hey, this is when we saw the breakdowns in the fourth quarter. They really didn't have a guy who relished the pass rush with Cedric Cooper going down. I think probably if you want to pinpoint one injury, just one, that may have cost South Carolina those 2 games, I would say it's Cedric Cooper.
Well, one thing that you just have to admit, Pro, if you are a South Carolina fan and you look at this, despite what the recruiting rankings and everything have said about South Carolina in the last few years, this is a defense right now that is not very talented, top to bottom. They lost some talented guys. The recruiting classes going back 4, 5, 6 years obviously brought in some very good players that have come through the system and have departed. And the ones that we saw leave this past season, and several going to the NFL, several still in the NFL, tells you that they did recruit well. But now you look at the group that they're working with this particular time. Do you see an NFL level player among their top 15 defensive players?
Yeah, I see potentially NFL players. I mean, when you look
Name one.
Well, Bryson Allen Williams, for instance, you look at his build and his quickness. Now, here's the point, Phil. People talk about they're less talented. I don't believe that. I believe you got players who haven't found a comfort zone. You know, in fact, if you look at Mississippi State, none of those players were top recruits, but now that they've aged, they know where to go. They're comfortable with how to make plays. This team right now, they lose a step because the snap goes, wait a minute, where's my key? Okay, there it is. Let me react. No, you can't do it that way, and that's where they are right now. So when people talk about Alabama's going through the same thing. They talk about all their recruiting. They've got players who don't, at this point, know where to go on offense. So you see it happen all the time. I think there's talent. If you look at, for instance, a Vanderbilt, why did some of the talent is still there at Vandy, but there was a belief system that the previous coaching staff had put in those players that they believed they could win, and they were in the proper position. So a lot of times it's not talent, it's talent plus being in the proper position. Now, I'll tell you one other reason, too. As I said last year, I said when you have a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, offenses, for whatever reason, because he was so quick to get in the backfield, they tore pages out of their offensive playbook. No, this is not going to work with him in there. Let's take this one out. Let's take this one out. Well, I think this year all the offenses are working with a full playbook because they don't have to worry about number 7 disrupting things.
This is all true. Everything you're saying is true. It still doesn't take away from the fact that from a talent standpoint, they just don't have it this year. When I look at that defensive front, either they don't have talent or they're not being well coached and they're not being developed. You know, I see guys that are in their 3rd year and longer in the program, and you're still waiting for them to be a contributor in a big way. Phillip Dukes, for example. Looking for a guy that's in his 2nd year, Kelsey Griffin. Griffin, very highly recruited guy out of the state of Georgia, not contributing anything. Deion Green, not contributing. These are guys that I thought going into the season would be players and would help offset the loss of the more talented players who left last year. But for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. And then you look at the defensive ends, that's just been a disaster. I mean, Darius English hasn't been able to have much of an impact. Mason Harris has not had much of an impact. Gerald Dixon hasn't had the kind of year. I thought he was a really good player at times last year, but I haven't seen it from him this year. So I think you have to look at the fact that top to bottom on the defense, the talent drop-off, much like Clemson's running game. You can scratch your head all day and wonder about why is Clemson's running game not what it's used to, what it's used to be, why it's not like it used to be. Well, just look at the talent and look at the players. Either they aren't good enough or they haven't been developed yet. It's just a big drop-off. And I see the same thing with this defense. Now, if they hold their class together and they get a Dexter Wideman in and they get Montravius Lewis in, and if they were able to turn a DJ Jones and get him in, some older guys, one going through a prep school, a couple going through junior college, they could pay immediate benefits. It's too bad that Blackshear got hurt and lost his entire season because reports on him were that he was a very special type of defensive end. It would have been nice to see what he could do this year, and then kind of see if he was going to step right in and be that immediate impact freshman next year. Now it'll be a big question mark for him coming off the knee injury. But they've got to get better talent back on that defensive side.
Oh, I think he's trying to set us up.
All right, so we have struck out on Ellis Johnson tonight. We'll try and hit him up tomorrow night. They don't have practice tomorrow, I don't believe, so he will be traveling, but we'll try and line him up for tomorrow night. Also tomorrow night on the program, being Thursday, Lee Sterling will be with us with his Sterling picks. We'll see what he has to say about some of the big games coming up this weekend, like Clemson, BC. You got Ole Miss, Tennessee, LSU, Kentucky, of course, Notre Dame, Florida State. Get his thoughts on those games and others coming up on the program tomorrow night. South Carolina wrapped up practice a little while ago. The Gamecock players and coaches had a chance to talk with reporters. Going to let you hear from Dylan Thompson, the Gamecock quarterback. Steakman, are we ready to go with Mr. Thompson? All right, Dylan Thompson, the Gamecock quarterback, of course, as he goes into the final half of the season, really did not have a terrible first half. Didn't have a great final game to the first half, of course, against Kentucky. Probably his worst game of the season to date. But overall, completing 61%, which is above his career norm. He's thrown for 1,577 yards, 13 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. So, you know what? If he has a similar second half, you're going to say he's had a pretty good season. Here he is talking to the media.
Chance for this whole group to get a little confidence, or do you look at this just like you would look at Auburn? Or?
You hope so. You hope every game you get is confidence builder. Obviously, the past ones haven't been for us, but you got to come out and be sharp, man, and just do what we've been practicing this week. I think we've had a good week of practice last week, and then this week we've been sharp. So hopefully, just come out Saturday and show that.
In retrospect, was it good to have an off week after 2 straight losses, or would you rather have just gotten right back out there?
I don't think you know until we play, but I think for us at the time, we feel like it was good for us. We had a really good week of practice, like I said, and guys, I think we could have done a lot of things in response to that game, and I feel like we grew as a team and just came out and worked, and that's what we needed to do, get better. We got a lot of room to improve, and everybody knows that, so that's what we're trying to do. Sorry.
Dylan, I know last week you guys talked about having your players-only meeting just to kind of right the ship, so to speak. What has this week been like now with you guys having all got on the same page, hopefully?
I think, guys just come to work, and that's what we're focused on, just trying to be a better team each day we come out here. And that's real vanilla, but that's what we want to do. Just want to play and have fun. That's why we're here, man. We're here to have a good time playing and winning games, and try to do that Saturday.
Mike Matula's practiced a little bit today. I mean, is that, a good thing to see, a confidence booster for him, for you guys?
Yeah, I've seen Mike. He's a big guy, so anytime he's out here in his gear, it's good to see. So we're excited about Mike, and, if he's going to get back out there, that'd be great for us. But we trust the guys we've got. But, yeah, anytime Mike can get back out here and get rolling a little bit, it's always good.
How frustrating has it been for him to be sitting out as long as he has?
I'm sure it's been pretty frustrating because he worked to battle his way back to get some playing time, and things didn't go the way he would probably want with him getting hurt late in camp. But we watched him work and try to get back, and he looks pretty good.
Okay, that's Dylan Thompson after the Gamecock practice this afternoon. And again, if he goes out and has the kind of second half that he had in the first half. Now you think about. Don't know how much he'll play against Furman, how much he'll play against South Alabama, those 2 games in particular, because they'll probably try to get some of the young guys in there. He will face a very good defense against Auburn, and he'll face a good defense against Florida, both on the road. Tennessee could be a game where he could post some good numbers, and he's going to face a very good defense on the road against Clemson. So when you think about it, in the last 6 games on the road against 3 teams with excellent defenses, those yards might be hard to come by.
Yeah, and I think probably I really do think you're going to see a more use of the running game as they go forward, because they know they're going to have to keep that defense off the field. Now, that may help Dillon in this fact that if they do have success being stubborn with the running game, that will make the play-action pass more effective. Also, if you look at his stats, Phil, we can count at least 2 or 3 touchdown passes that were dropped that should be in there that's not there, but that's not his fault. He can't control that, but he'll need some help from his receivers going forward in the last 6 games, because a couple of tremendous catches that may have been pulled in weren't reeled in the first half of the season.
All right, couple of email comments to us about the new trophy or cup that they're working on for the USC-Clemson game, and this comes to us from Walter, who says it should be called the Gamecock Cup because we are going to have it for a long time, as long as the Taters are dumb enough to have a coach named Dabo. Who are his assistants, Fred and Barney? I don't know about that, Walter. Dabo's done a pretty good job, and they feel like this is going to be their year, perhaps, to turn it around, and not just for a single year. I think Clemson is thinking about domination and turning the momentum of the rivalry back in their direction. Be right back.
All right. What's up? Well, what have you got to do to report? Anything on the injury front, or?
All right, let's wrap things up with some Dabo Swinney. Just a little while ago, after the Tigers wrapped up their practice, he was asked to update everybody on injury status with his team.
No, nothing on the injury front. Peake was out there today. His rehab's coming good. I think he's gonna get better in a hurry. Tyshawn's looking better. He's starting to do more and more in practice. I'm getting encouraged, and I know he's encouraged, so that's a positive. But Deshaun's out there mentally practicing every rep. Obviously can't throw the ball, but he's mentally very engaged. But we're in pretty good shape injury-wise right now.
How's Gore look this week?
He's practiced good.
Yeah.
He's been very much into it. And we didn't do any good on good with him. We held him out of that, but he just looks like he feels better. There was something. I knew something wasn't right with him. I just didn't know, but because he just wasn't the same guy that I saw in camp. And so I think his mentality's back to what it was. And I think a lot of it, again, he's healthy.
Tony Stewart, think
he looks good. He looks good. Oh yeah, he's back at it. Took most of the reps today. We limited him a little bit on Monday and worked him more yesterday, and he pretty much was full go today. So he'll be ready to roll.
When you have an offense in Boston College that does so much with eye candy and shifts, pre-snap, post-snap, all that stuff, is it more important that your middle linebacker have a command of a grasp of?
Well, I mean, they run a lot of the same plays. They're very committed to what they do. They do it over and over and over. They will change up personnel and the looks and formations that they do things out of, but they're just very deliberate. The biggest thing is you got to leverage and contain the ball from outside in, because they will get on if they really want to play and get on that edge if they can, and because if they can get you loosened up out there, then they're going to attack you downhill. So we got to obviously do a great job with our inside guys and keeping the presence that we've had there. But we're going to have to play great perimeter defense. We're going to have to do an excellent job. And that's the backers boxing it. Could be the ends boxing it. It could be a secondary guy boxing the play. But we'll ask our backers to do different things based on the call. But this is a huge game for them.
All right, there you go. Dabo Swinney, some of his thoughts after the Tigers practice on Wednesday. They will practice one more time tomorrow and then fly out on Friday to Boston. I'll be up there tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday to cover the Tigers against the Eagles. Looking forward to that. Pro, final thoughts as we wrap up this Wednesday night edition of Sports Talk.
Well, color the World Series blue, and do we go from San Francisco, the West Coast, to Kansas City, or all Missouri World Series? Be interesting to see what happens in the NLCS.
Absolutely. All right, tomorrow night, Lee Sterling will be here. Hopefully we'll catch up with Ellis Johnson, more from USC and Clemson, as well as we look ahead to the weekend. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, State Man and Pro. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.